Welcome back guys to episode 5 of my 90cc Ranger build. If you guys watched episode 4 to the very end, you would have seen where it said to be continued, where I faded it out to black. At the end of it, you would have heard that I yelled out that I'd broke my arm, but it was all black and you never saw anything because I was holding on to that footage until this next episode. So in this episode, I'm going to talk about what happened, how I ended up with a broken arm. I had to have surgery. Yeah, so basically when I drove this out of the shed for just, what seemed to be a quick, simple trip, my wife was recording me. I yelled out to her, can you just come and quickly record this video? It was for YouTube just to get the last clip for the last episode 4. She followed me down the driveway. When I drove down this small section of road, I noticed that the steering was it was really twitchy and it was just almost doing whatever it wanted. And by the time that I drove about, 40 meters down the road, the steering all of a sudden, which I'll show in the video soon, it went hard left suddenly and then it went full lock right, threw me over, rolled over the top of me, and when it went over, I put my left arm out. First thing that hit the ground, snapped my bone here straight through just above the joint, and then the little Ranger rolled over the top of me. Luckily, I didn't get stuck in the Ranger, I didn't get my legs caught. I wasn't wearing any protective clothing because it seemed like an innocent, small trip or whatever. So at that point, when I stood back up, after being in shock basically, and truly just really embarrassed, I looked at my wrist and I noticed that it was like heavily out of place. It was just like a wave. And at that point, I knew straight away that I'd broken my wrist. Because my wife was recording, she was actually running down the road to me to see, because she thought, he's obviously knocked out or some sort of crazy injury. But at that point, I'd already stood back up with adrenaline, pushed the small Ranger into the gutter and was assessing the damage and assessing what was really wrong with me. I was in a lot of pain, like agony with my wrist, but because of the adrenaline, we pushed the Ranger back up the street, chucked it in the shed, and we just ripped straight to hospital, where I sat for the next 8 hours before they told me that, for one, it was broken, and secondly, that I'm gonna need surgery. After they announced that I needed surgery on this wrist to correct it, because if I didn't, they feared that by the time I was like late 40s or early 50s, I'd probably have arthritis in this wrist. They said that the best course of action, and they've done it many times before, is to put a plate in there and hold the bone together to give me my best chances of healing. So obviously I went along with that. They booked me in 2 days later to have surgery on my wrist. I went in at 7 a.m, sat around from 7 a.m. with no food from the night before until it was 2:30 when they took me into the theater, and it was a 3-hour surgery. When I come out from surgery, oh my God, I felt like I was drunk. I didn't know what planet I was on. Then I got a lift home with my wife. That was it for the day. I was out of it. So as you can imagine, because of everything that's happened after I crashed this and the injury and not being able to use my arm and whatnot, I started off in a half slab while I had 15 stitches in my arm. And I was basically unable to use this arm. But after 2 weeks, they took me out of that, took the stitches out, put a wrist splint on, and just said, take it easy for the next 4 weeks, because it's a 6-week period that it takes for it to heal enough to be completely out of all this sort of stuff. So moving forward, I've probably got about 3 or 4 weeks till my wrist is back out of this splint. And then at that point, I'm gonna have to rehabilitate the joint, get all the stiffness out of my wrist and whatnot before I can even think about continuing with this. So once I'm fully healed and back to normal, I'll probably continue to, as the next step with this, to assess why the steering went so weird. I got an idea of why it did it. I believe that it's because I've converted it down to a much smaller steering wheel, which has a lot less leverage than the standard handlebars had. So at speed, low leverage, I just could not control what that steering system wanted to do. Basically, with the kit that I got with the steering wheel, it came with a small rack and pinion rack, and I'll be able to use that to mount to this to make the steering better. But the reason I didn't use it initially was because the width of this steering rack is basically the entire width between here. So there wasn't even any room for any tie rod ends to be added to the end of it to even use that system. So if I was to use that in this to try and make it work, I would have to widen the front wheel track or who knows what next. So that'll probably be coming up in the next videos. What's coming up next is I'm going to show you the crash video. It doesn't go for very long, so this is probably just going to be a short video. I'm just warning you now, it's not overly graphic, but it hits hard every time that I watch it, and I just think to myself, like, how lucky I was that I didn't get my leg caught. I didn't hit my head because I wasn't wearing any safety equipment. I wasn't wearing a helmet. I was wearing thongs. One of my slides flew off and you'll be able to see that on the road. So yeah, I count my lucky stars every time that I think about this. Days after crashing this and being in hospital and whatnot, I swear I was traumatized because every night going to sleep, I was reliving that moment of this, just thinking how lucky I was. Just as a warning, Do not build this at home. Do not try this at home. And if you do it at your own risk. I'm not suggesting that this is something that you should do. It's something that I wanted to do. And it's been a really raw experience to find out how something that you choose to do and how you change a vehicle can affect the way that it functions on the road in a really negative way and result in crashing me on the roads. Yeah, so remember to subscribe if you like, if you want to see more. Comment down below what you think about the videos that I've been putting up. Every single comment that you guys write down below in the comment section, I always respond to every single one. I'm happy to read them all. I love your feedback. So let's get into some of the footage of the crash. Bye bye. Thank you, Marco. Oh, babe. I broke my wrist. Hold this. Oh, it's okay. I think I've dislocated it. Where's my dog? Okay. Oh my God. Thank you, my son. Take me to the hospital, please. Come and check this out. Look at that. Thickness difference. Did a good job.